Welcome to the Lessons Learned for Vets podcast page. My name is Norris, and I created this show for you. I want this show to serve as a source of advice and guidance as you navigate the military transition path. I want you to know that you're not alone with what you're going through, and I want you to know that there is only one right way to transition out of the military, and that is the way that you choose to do it. We're just here to help smooth the path ahead of you and advise you about any bumps in the road that you might come across. So if you enjoy this video, please give us a like, subscribe to our page, and I encourage you to go to your favorite podcast provider and listen to the full episode of this show. You can also visit our website at www.ll4forvets.com. I promise you will get some great information. Well, if you haven't yet listened to the full episode with James, you got to head over to your favorite podcast platform and do that. But James is here to talk to us about some of his struggles. So, James, you told me a story when we talked last time, and it was your words. I think you said you spiraled through a series of jobs that were far below your capabilities, right? You told me a story I think you're going to share with us today, but so tell us that story and tell me about your turning point, kind of what helped you get things back on track so you stopped spiraling.
So it took a while to unspiral, but for me, the story began with I can recall a time I was working, and hopefully they don't get mad at me, but I was working at a uniform company, and it was called Centos, and I was an SSR, service sales representative. And what we did was, I don't know if you go to bars or restaurants, we threw the mats out, so we changed the mats, we changed the uniforms, we changed their restaurant and shop bar towels. So anyway, I was in Wilmington, North Carolina. And I was doing the route by myself and had, been retired from or left active duty and had just recently had left the highway patrol. So for me, I wasn't in the National Guard or anything at this point. So I was sitting there and I went to a Burger King. Okay. And I threw out the mat, unrolled the mat, and I rolled up the dirty mat. So as I was actually throwing out the mat, though, I forgot to tell you this part. As I threw the mat out, there was this lieutenant. I'll never forget it. A second lieutenant. I didn't get his name, but it was a second lieutenant. He was walking with his sergeant. And this kid, he stepped center mass onto my mat as I had threw it out. And I looked up at him. He looked down at me. We made eye contact. And I was just like, where is my life heading here? And from that moment, I said, something's got to change. I can't do this. And the reason why was he represented everything that I loved about my life, right? Which serving in the military, being an Army officer, he represented that. And then here I am throwing a mat down as a common folk, right? And he steps center mass at me, and then he just smiles and keeps on walking. I didn't even say anything to him. I didn't have anything to say. I said, here's what my life has come to. And that's really, for me, from that moment, I said, I've got to find something that has more meaning and purpose. And I'm not down, trying to talk down about folks that are doing that, because that's a life of service for them. But for me personally, it just wasn't my calling.
And how did you come back from that? Tell me about what came next for you.
So for me, I ended up finding a job in a mental health facility. Go figure, right? I worked for a company called Community Innovations, and I was a case manager. So I would help adult bipolar or substance abusers and help them with their med maintenance. And then I ended up becoming the corporate trainer. So I realized then again that I went back in the National Guard. So I joined the National Guard again to go back to my belongings. I honestly was looking for that lieutenant, but anyway, I couldn't find him because he was in the National Guard. I wish I'd have got his name, but anyway, we went back into the National Guard. So I felt a sense of meaning there. And then I also joined a, Community Innovations, which gave me that sense of purpose, giving back to my community. And that's really where it got me back on the right path. Now, truth in lending, that took several years. It wasn't an overnight process. It's been a little baby steps every day. I'm still transforming, in my opinion, right now.
So kind of much like we talked about in the episode, the decision that you made and the job that you were in, you took, like you said, that path of least resistance. you had to put food on the table, and I understand that. And there are times where we have to do that, right? We have to take a job so that we can feed our family or keep a roof over our heads, whatever it is. But you also have to be willing to look at, am I doing this for the right reasons? And are there changes that I can make going forward that will not only do that, put the roof over our heads, feed us, but also be fulfilling to what I want to do.
Right. And we talked about this earlier, the spiral itself, for me personally, it was about, because then the rest of the story is I ended up going back in the National Guard and I got on an 18-month deployment. So I ended up being deployed for 18 months. And to me, that was kind of one of the best and darkest of times of my life. And the reason why was it for me, it always have been about family. And for that 18 months, I was away from my oldest daughter and my middle daughter. And honestly, to this day, I even talked about this on a few other podcasts. I still feel that guilt of being away for those 18 months away from those, from those two girls, because they were my world, and I still to this day struggle with that. Was it all worth it? Long story short, no. If somebody could give me a magic wand right now and say, hey, I can give you those 18 months back with your daughters, I would jump on it in a heartbeat. But I still need, it's a double-edged sword there. So anyway, that's why I talk about the spiral, and it taken me many years to recover from that. Because then at the end of the day, I had to realize I couldn't control all the situations, and it wasn't my fault or their fault that I was gone for 18 months. I was doing my job and my duty. So,
and I think that, we talked about intention earlier, right? Is that you can control your intention. You can't control the outcome or the result. And so did you make the decision to return to the National Guard for the right reasons? Maybe, maybe not. But every decision you can recover from, right? And you can rectify the situation with your kids. You can come back and be present for them. You were more fulfilled in terms of, being part of that tribe again. And it just puts you on a better path overall.
Right. If it wasn't for that, getting back to my family, which was both the military and my actual family, then I wouldn't be standing here right now. So who knows where I would have been. I would still be in that spiral state. Right. And that's what it's about. It's, that's the thing, it's an up and down process. There's going to be good and bad days. And that's why it's important to find mentors, leaders, friends that you can rely on that are going to be your advocates. Because here's the thing. No one wants a fair weather friend. We want friends that are, during bad times. I don't want a friend that's going to stay with me when everything is good. I want them. Hey, look, I'm having a bad day. That's the friend that I want. I don't want a friend that's just there when it's sunny outside.
Absolutely. So find those mentors, those advocates, those partners, collaborators, and figure out your center, kind of your why and what's driving you. And I feel like the rest will, if you take action, like we talked about in the episode, the rest kind of falls into place, doesn't it?
It does. And you just got to forgive yourself because you're not perfect. Forgive yourself. You're not going to be perfect. Just hit play.
Great advice. Thanks, James. I appreciate you joining me.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you for watching the video today. Have you subscribed to our channel yet? Did you leave us a comment? Have you listened to the full episode of the podcast on your favorite podcast provider? We sure would appreciate it if you would do all of these things to support us today.